Hey, hello boys and girls, this is lesson 4 on area and perimeter. So I'm going to show you what exactly area and perimeter is and show you how you can measure both area and perimeter. So let's have a look. Okay, so let's start off with the perimeter of rectangles. I'll show you how you can calculate that, okay? So here's a rectangle, and I want you to picture, when it comes to area and perimeter, as a rectangle as a farmer's field. So here's the one I've made earlier, and you see it's got some fencing around the outside, and that's so that none of the animals inside the field can escape. So the perimeter is basically the length, the total length of the outside of the field, the fencing, added together in total. So here's an example with measurements on it. And you can see I've got a length of 4 centimeters up here, and I've used dashes to show each individual piece of fencing. So there's 1 centimeter, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 centimeters along the top. I've got 4 on the bottom because it's parallel and they're both equal. And I've got 3 going width going down and another 3 centimeters going down. And it looks like this. So I've got 3 from here, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, plus 3 centimeters, and plus the 4 here. So I've added them all together and it gives me a grand total of 14 centimeters in perimeter. Now if you want to be a smarty pants, you can use brackets and multiplication. So here I've done 2 times 4 first, i.e. 2 of these lengths are both the same, so I've just doubled it. So I've done 2 lots of 4 centimeters, and I'm adding that to 2 lots of 3 centimeters here. So that gives me 8 plus 6, and it gives me a total of 14. So it's exactly the same way of doing it, but this way is a bit quicker. Okay, I'm going to move on to area now. So to work out the area of a rectangle is basically just to find out how much space it occupies in that rectangle. So here I've got some sheep to help me. So I've got 1 sheep equals 1 centimeter square on my paper here, but you could be measuring area in meters square if it's a garden, for instance, or a field, kilometers square if you want to work out the area of a city, and then I've got millimeters squared. So just to show how small a millimeter square is, it's basically 1 centimeter square split up into 100 tiny 1 millimeter squares. So there's 100 here, and I've just highlighted one little tiny square, and that is 1 millimeter square. So you might want to work out the area of your fingernail, for instance. That might be measured in millimeters squared. Okay, so let's go back to our rectangle here, which had a length of 4 centimeters on the top and a width of 3 centimeters. So I'm going to use my my sheep here to count how many can go in, how many squares we've got. Okay, so remember 1 sheep for each square. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 centimeters squared. That's the area. We have this little tiny 2 to show that we are measuring in squares, okay, which is for area. Now notice when I was counting them, listen, you can hear the 4 times table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you could just use your times tables to work out the area in a quicker way. We've got 4, 8, 12. Okay, so you could just count in rows, or I could do it in columns in threes. So I've got 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, so this is where I've used times tables. 4 times 3 gives me 12, or 3 times 4 gives me 12 centimeters squared as well. Now, if I did not have my squares inside and my sheep, if this was not on square paper, how could you calculate the area? So, for instance, I've got a post-it note here. It's got no squares on it. How would I calculate the area? Well, we're going to use our formula here. We're going to use the length. You get 1 length, which is 4 centimeters here, and you've got the width, 3 centimeters. If you do 4 times 3, just like we did with the sheep, 4 times 3, 4 times 3, it gives you the area inside that rectangle. So all I have to do for this post-it note is calculate the length here and width, times them together, and it should give me the area. Okay, I'm just out in my lovely garden. It's a beautiful day, beautiful Sunday morning. I just want to show you really quickly. So for perimeter, if I wanted to calculate the perimeter of my garden, I would measure the inside here, all the length of my fencing around my garden. I'd measure all of that, and that would tell me the perimeter of my garden. And if I want to measure the area of my garden, I'd have to get some squares. So probably meter squares, not centimeter squares like I did back on that on that worksheet. I'd have to get meter squares and count how many squares I could get into my garden, and then that would tell me the area of my garden. Or an easier way, instead of putting down those squares, is use that formula I told you, remember? So you just measure one length of the rectangle and you multiply it by the width of that rectangle. And I've already done that before, so this is 11 meters in length, and in width it's 7 meters. So 11 times 7 gives 77 meters squared. So that means if I had a meter square, I could fit 77 of those meters squared squares in my garden.